Welcome to our series, Questions and Answers for a World in Crisis. As you now know, this site is devoted to the most pressing questions and answers of the world today, especially those that concern our youth. There are more than 120 topics already, and we are receiving more from students and teachers, young professionals, and seekers. We invite your participation in sending us topics for consideration. Any we do not already have, we will gladly add to the list. You may write to me at narada12@gmail.com. Today we have another important topic, especially for those who are studying for exams. It is concentration. All of the answers given in this series are from Sri Aurobindo and the Mother in their voluminous works. We encourage you to read them. From the Mother. Concentration on a precise goal is helpful to development. Concentration does not aim for any effect, but is simple and persistent. It is only when the person who concentrates puts a special will with a special relation into his concentration that it has an effect. The more we concentrate on the goal, the more it blossoms forth and becomes precise. This faculty of concentration belongs not only to the intellectual, but to all activities, and is obtained by the conscious control of the energies. It is well known that the value of a man is in proportion to his capacity of concentrated attention. The greater the concentration, the more exceptional is the result. To the extent that a perfect and unfailing concentrated attention sets the stamp of genius on what is produced. There can be genius in sports, as in any other human activity. There are all kinds of different meditations. What people usually call meditation is, for example, choosing a subject or an idea and following its development or trying to understand what it means. There is a concentration, but not as complete a concentration as in concentration proper, where nothing should exist except the point on which one concentrates. Meditation is a more relaxed movement, less tense than concentration. Now, there is the form of meditation which consists in a concentration on an idea, and concentrating one's attention upon it to the extent that that alone exists. Then this is the equivalent of a concentration. But instead of being total, it is only mental. Total concentration implies a concentration also of all the movements of the vital and physical. The method of gazing at a point is a very well-known one. So it is even physical, you see. One's eyes are fixed on this point, and one does not move anymore, nothing more. One sees nothing, doesn't move his sight from that point. And the result, usually, is that one ends up by becoming that point. And I knew someone who used to say that one had to pass beyond the point, become this point, to the extent of passing to the other side, crossing the point, and that then one opened to higher regions. But it is true that if one succeeds in concentrating totally on a point, there is a moment when the identification is absolute, and there is no more any separation between the one who is concentrating and the thing upon which he is concentrated. There is a complete identification. One can't distinguish between himself and the point. This is a total concentration, while meditation is a particular concentration of the thought, a partial one. There seems to be only one solution to the problem. In the same way as an athlete develops methodically his muscles by scientific and gradual training, the faculty of concentrated attention can be developed scientifically by a methodical training, developed in such a way that concentration is obtained at will and on whatever subject or activity is chosen. Thus, the work of preparation, instead of being done in the subconscious by a slow and steady repetition of the same movements, is done consciously by a concentration of will and a gathered attention centered on one point or another according to the plan and decision. The chief difficulty seems to be to obtain this power of concentration independent from all inner and outer circumstances. Difficult, perhaps, but not impossible for him who is determined and persevering. Moreover, whatever method of development is chosen, determination and perseverance are indispensable to obtain success. Concentration does not aim at effect, but is simple and persistent. By concentrating on anything whatsoever, we are able to know that thing, to make it deliver up its concealed secrets. By concentration again, the whole will can be gathered up for the acquisition of that which is still ungrasped. By concentration of our whole being on one status of itself, we can become whatever we choose. From Sri Aurobindo: along with purity and as a help to bring it about, concentration. Purity and concentration are indeed two aspects, feminine and masculine, passive and active, of the same status of being. Purity is the condition in which concentration becomes entire, rightly effective, omnipotent. By concentration, purity does its works, and without it would only lead to a state of peaceful quiescence and eternal repose. By concentration on anything whatsoever, we are able to know that thing, to make it deliver up its concealed secrets. We must use this power to know not things, but the one thing in itself. By concentration again, the whole will can be gathered up for the acquisition of that which is still ungrasped, still beyond us. This power, if it is sufficiently trained, sufficiently single-minded, sufficiently sincere, sure of itself, faithful to itself alone, absolute in faith, we can use for the acquisition of any object whatsoever. But we ought to use it not for the acquisition of the many objects which the world offers to us, but to grasp spiritually that one object worthy of pursuit, which is also the one subject worthy of knowledge. By concentration of our whole being on one status of itself, we can become whatever we choose. We can become, for instance, even if we were before a mass of weaknesses and fears, a mass instead of strength and courage, or we can become all a great purity, holiness, and peace, or a single universal soul of love. But we ought, it is said, to use this power to become not even these things, high as they may be in comparison with what we now are, but rather to become that which is above all things and free from all action and attributes, the pure and absolute being. The first step in concentration must be always to accustom the discursive mind to a settled, unwavering pursuit of a single course of connected thought on a single subject. And this it must do undistracted by all lures and alien calls on its attention. Such concentration is common enough in our ordinary life, but it becomes more difficult when we have to do it inwardly, without any outward object or action on which to keep the mind. Yet this inward concentration is what the seeker of knowledge must effect. Ordinarily, the consciousness is spread out everywhere, dispersed, running in this or that direction, after this subject and that object in multitude. When anything has to be done of a sustained nature, the first thing one does is to draw back all this dispersed consciousness and concentrate. It is then, if one looks closely, bound to be concentrated in one place and on one occupation, subject, or object, as when you are composing a poem or a botanist is studying a flower. The place is usually somewhere in the brain, if it is the thought, in the heart, if it is the feeling in which one is concentrated. The yogic concentration is simply an extension and intensification of the same thing. It may be on an object, as when one does tratak on a shining point. Then one has to concentrate so that one sees only that point and has no other thought than that. It may be on an idea or word or name, the idea of the divine, the word Om, the name Krishna, or a combination of idea and word or idea and name. But further in yoga, one also concentrates in a particular place. There is the famous rule of concentrating between the eyebrows, the center of the inner mind, of occult vision, of the will is there. What you do is to think firmly from there on whatever you make the object of your concentration, or else try to see the image of it from there. If you succeed in this, then after a time, you feel that your whole consciousness is centered there in that place. Of course, for the time being. After doing it for some time, and often, it becomes easy and normal. One has not to fatigue oneself at first by long concentration if one is not accustomed. For then, in a jaded mind, it loses its power and value. One can relax and meditate instead of concentrating. It is only as the concentration becomes normal that one can go on for a longer and longer time.